control, you've changed your location. So the whole question is simple. What is change? I believe change is something which that is inevitable, yet sort of, what do I call it? Inevitable at the same time, because you can't you make some choices that leads to some changes. However, there are some changes that do occur despite the fact that you didn't make any choice or anything. So basically, yeah, we are going to talk about some of the stages that leads to change. Interestingly, we are using very well minders. Yes, so here we go with our very first article. It says that anyone who has ever made and broken a New Year's resolution can appreciate the difficulty of behavioral change. Oh, yes, I forgot to point it out that we are going to focus on behavioral change, not general change, specific. So, yeah, for behavioral changes, it's more like your lifestyle and everything, how you change your lifestyle. And then it says that making a lasting change in behavior is rarely a simple process. It usually involves a substantial commitment of time, effort, and emotion. I agree to this because if, just like the article said, if you've ever made a New Year resolution and then broken it, you'd know that trying to change your behavior or a pattern or something that you do regularly is quite difficult, especially when there are some concepts that I've read about: the 5 a.m. club. I've heard of the 20-day rule. I've heard of the 90-day rule. The question is, do you get to the 90 days? What mindset do you add to the 20-day rules and then the 90-day rules for you to have a behavior? Because with the 20-day rule, it is believed that after 20 days, if you do something consistently, it becomes part and parcel of your life. The same way with the 90 days rule. If you do something consistently for like 90 days, but the question is, what if you drop out one day? Do you continue or do you restart? Anyway, that is my personal question. So how do you get started on a behavioral change? Whether you want to lose weight, whether you want to stop smoking, whether you want to accomplish another like great goal, how do you do it? You may have tried several things to try to get it, but then this article says that there are 3 elements of change that we need, which is the readiness to change, the barriers to change, and then the likelihood of relapse. So I think the readiness to change has to do with the resources and then the knowledge you have available that could last long concerning the particular change you want in your life. So how ready are you to change from that particular behavior you were talking about? And then there is the barriers to change as well. And then the barriers to change usually, I believe, is one of the greatest reason like we are supposed to look out for, because who doesn't know that, like, maybe you don't know, but then most of the time we know what the issue is. The question is, what is preventing us from solving that issue? What is preventing us? What is the cause of how do I put it, what is the reason you are still the same despite the fact that you have a notion or a mentality to change? Why are you still doing the same things you are doing despite the fact that you've thought over 1,000 times that you want to change? So the barriers, the things that prevent us from changing, I believe is one is more greater than the red, because you can be ever willing to change, but then if you do not clear off the barriers, then you are stuck at being ready to change. The next element, this it says that the likelihood of relapse, what might trigger return to a former behavior. Well, we have to look out for that as well, because if you are trying to change, what is the high possibility that you may go back to what you were doing? Because let's say, for instance, what habits do I have that I want to change? Honestly, I don't want to change anything at the moment. So let's say that you have a very, I don't want to call it a bad habit, but you have something that you want to change, smoking, and then suddenly you realize that um you are ready to change, you want to stop smoking, you realize that maybe having cigarette sparks with you as one of the reasons as to why you're still smoking, and then you suddenly figure it out. So the thing is, after the barriers, the likelihood of a relapse, what would make you go back into it? So with that, is it your friend? Is it your friend, like the colleagues or the people you work with who have the same, should I call it, perception, attitude, behavior as you? Are they going to be the reason you would go back to who you are, or your old behavior? And then there are some stages of change models. One of the best known approaches to change is the stage of change, or and then I jumped, introduced in the late 1970s by researcher James Pocasta and Carlo Di Clemente. Mhm. They were studying the ways to help people quit smoking. Okay, so that led to. But before that, why don't we talk about some characteristics? Some characteristics. Some characteristics include denial. If you deny that you have an issue, or if you have a problem you want to change about, then you really have no problem you want to change about. That's the whole idea. And then the, the next one is the ignorance of the problem. So you have this issue, but then you do not have any understanding or whatever it is about it. Then you've got a problem there too. You know. So ignorance of the problem and then denials are some of the ways um, people, or some of the characteristics people have when it comes to change. And then there are some strategies you can think of using when it comes to change. And then the strategy I would say is, you have to rethink your behavior. So there's this thing that I do usually that is over analyzing, obviously. But then if you rethink your behavior as a person, usually, and then you analyze yourself, and sometimes take comment from people, your friends, your family. You get to know where you are at the moment, and then you get to know what to do and what not to do from there. So you move on to the next stages of your life. So apart from rethinking your behavior, you analyze yourself and then your actions, the things that you do that prevents you from changing, and the things that you could do which would help you change at the same time. So it's all about you, because I feel like everything boils down to you as an individual and how you relate to yourself. I'm not trying to preach the whole self-love thing, but then it's the relation you have with yourself, your family, your friends, and whatever it is that leads to the whole change. Because if you do not have the willpower or the mentality that you could change, then I don't know if you could change. So you have to rethink, you have to analyze your behavior, and then there's this last one you can as well use as a strategy, which is you have to assess the risks and current behavior. So what do you risks, like what are the risks involved in uh what are some of the risks you have to look at the risk factor involved, as in the risks to take for you to overcome the behavior you want to change. Anyway, so risks, analyze yourself, and then you rethink your behavior. So the earlier stages of change is known as pre-contemplation, obviously. So during the pre-contemplation stage, people begin to state, and then they're either in denial as to whether they are, how do I put it? They are, as to whether they are in a wrong position. I don't want to call it a bad behavior, but then whether whatever it is they are doing is good or not. So if you are in a pre-contemplation stage, you may feel resigned to your current state, or you may have no control over your behavior. You may think that, okay, me the son I'm here. So sometimes what causes this, I've noticed, is the whole, maybe the astrological sign things that could be a factor, because you read about them and then it sort of associates with what you say, so you just jump onto it. Okay, this is how I am. I don't think I can change because according to my astrological sign, this is how I am. That is a factor. Another thing is you not willing to change. So this is how that whole "this is how I am" thing is the thing. This is how I am. This is how I am. This is how I am. So basically, and then if you are in this stage, you have to begin to question yourself, and then you have to think. If you want to change and then you're in this stage, you have to think of, and you have to think and ask yourself questions like, have you tried changing this behavior in the past? If you did try changing this behavior, what was the outcome? What was the process you used? Do you have to use a different process? This change doesn't necessarily have to be this process, or these steps can go for any sort of change. It can be a major change in your life, it can be a minor change in your life. It depends on you. If you move from the pre-contemplation stage, the next stage you move to is a contemplation stage, and then with that one, you have those conflicted emotions. Am I doing it right? Am I on the right path? That kind of thing. And then the strategies is you have to identify the barriers to the change again, the things that prevent you from changing. And then when you identify those things, you confirm your readiness and your ability to change. And then you weigh the pros and then the cons. What are the advantages I would get should I change this behavior? What are the disadvantages I would gain from changing this behavior of mine? You look at that one, and then when you move from that place, you move to the preparation stage. So it's more like some stages you go through for you to change a particular behavior. So the preparation stage, you write down your goals, you write down the plans and then the actions, and then you follow them suit. You make a list of motivational statements. You just go it your way, and then I feel like it's okay for you to fall back. It's okay for you to fall back. You can just stand up when you fall back. So you're trying to quit smoking. You stop smoking for like a month, and then the next month you probably start smoking again. It's okay to fall back, but then you just have to remind yourself why you wanted to quit smoking in the first place. That's why you need to have like a great goal, bigger goal. And then the next stage is the action plan. And with this one, you reward yourself with a success point. So if you like, maybe, I think you either deprive yourself of something and then you reward yourself with that particular thing. I remember doing it once. I really love drinks. So for me to change, or for me to put an action into plan, that is, I if I succeed, the whole thing is I'm depriving myself of drinks. If I succeed, I get to buy a drink for myself. So something like that. You put, and then maintenance. Maintenance is the difficult part, because starting the process and all that, how do you maintain the change you've indulged in? Because you have to develop like a coping strategy for you to be able to overcome every temptation that comes your way, comes your way, which would want you to probably go back to the whole, and then you have to remember, go back to the old lifestyle you tried so hard to change. And you have to really remember to reward yourself. The reward, okay, it depends on you, but then remember to reward yourself, honestly. And then, it's okay for you to be frustrated because the change isn't coming as the way you wanted it to be. It's okay for you to feel like a failure, but as you identify these things, you recognize the barriers to the success, and then you reaffirm your goals, and then you work on it. You know, that's the whole idea of change. So you might want to reassess your resource and then your technique, your reaffirm your motivation, your plan, and whatever it is when we talk about change. Basically, that is it for today. Let's go for a short commercial break, and then back from the very short commercial break that we went. Thank you very much for stay, staying tuned. So for this particular part of the show, you know what we already do. We take in your questions and then we answer your questions. And then since it's change we are talking about, this is the question that we got. It's quite an understatement to say that a lot has changed over the last year. While many people were focusing on the changes, my sister and I were looking back and thinking of the many things that were still the same. As we have seen on the internet, there have been several call to actions, fight for equality, discrimination, the LGBT, and it goes on and on. Equality bills are being debated on, and then one evening, my sister and I had a heart to heart about what our parents would think about the social issues surrounding this bill and the bill, equality bill, and all that, and what side they would possibly take. And then we both concluded that my parents, who are great by the way and responsible and hardworking, would definitely take the side of the ill-informed people. Almost fantastic, super straight. Okay, so it's more like, as we're talking about change, despite the fact that things do change, behavioral and everything, there are some things that still stay the same. Let's take the word for instance. It still stays the same. So yes, I agree. I don't think this was a question for us. It was just an opinion to us. So yes, the next one says that I've noticed that many of my male friends and even some of my female friends have stopped contacting me frequently. I thought that it was just because they were busy until one friend told me that a friend had taken his phone to look through his contacts list and all his social media apps to see how often he contacts me. This creeped me out. Well, I found out that he had done the same for all the people that had stopped contacting me. Okay, that is creepy. So I was having dinner with my family and my friends, and I had known for 10 plus years. But coincidentally, my friend was at the restaurant we were at. I didn't notice he was there, but he noticed I was sitting next to my friend, so he secretly took a picture of us and airdropped it to my phone. I got really scared because I didn't know that my friend was there at the restaurant, and after finding out it was my friend who did it, I stayed away from him. Do you guys think that jealousy is cute when it comes to friendship? And how much jealousy can you contain? Well, Dominic is not here to help me answer this question today. So, do I think jealousy is cute? Well, I believe everything has a positive and then a negative form. It depends on how you maintain and roll it all out. So, you just have to take care of yourself and then clear it all out. Clear it all out. Oh, Frank says no volume. Wow, interesting. And the show has already ended. Frank, can you hear me now? I would have to look out for that. Was it me or was it the volume? Anyway, I don't know if Frank can hear me now. I'm reading the very last one, and then it goes. I am taking accountability in college, and I am an incoming freshman. I did not do well enough in my studies, and I even failed to get a qualifying grade. I say when I become. I know my circumstances are different, but I can't help feeling envious of my friends and peers who take the same course, who do well with their studies. I know I'm just as smart as they are and I love them, but I can't help but feel the change. How can I remove? Well, this feeling cannot be removed. Thank you very much, Frank. The feeling of, I don't know. If you feel you can do well and you do not do well, it's more like you know what you are capable of doing. So when you do not do well, it's you beating yourself up because you know what it is. But then, since the results are already in and then it's passed and then it gone, why not focus on your future and then try to learn or study so that you'd be able to do better instead of, there you have it. So just focus on your future. Look back on the past as like, okay, I did this and then I failed. So I'm going to do this so that I do not fail. So you just put strategies and everything in place so you do not find yourself in the same situation you were in. Thank you very much. That's all for the second segment of TMAI. Told me about it with me, ACK. Today, as I said earlier, happens to be the very last episode of the very first season of TMAI. There are, whichever one it is, going to be. There is going to be more. There are going to be whatever it is. So, we're going to prepare towards the second segment, which would focus more on you and your questions instead of me ranting about the various things that I'm curious about. This time around, the second season is going to focus on you, your questions, and everything. So, we are taking in your suggestion and everything. Just send them into my DM, wherever it is, or PenyGh everywhere. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or the PenyGh app. You can download that as well on Google Play Store or Apple Play Store. Once again, thank you very much for tuning into today's episode of Tell Me About It. Thank you very much. Kamsahamnida. Adios.